everyone. My name is Tatiana and I'm a marketing executive here at Hornbill. I would like to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar on simplifying the challenges of modern ITSM in the public sector. Just to inform you, delegate audio will be muted during the presentations to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have questions during the presentations, please type them into the GoToMeeting questions facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We will collate the questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend, and I will now pass you over to Stuart McCready, our host for today.
Thanks, Tatiana. Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much for joining in this webinar, which is, as Tatiana said, entitled Simplifying the Challenges of Modern ITSM in the Public Sector. So I'm Stuart McCready. I manage the public sector business at Hornbill. I've got one of my customers here with me, Adam Haylock from Aylesbury Vale District Council. Adam's a service delivery manager there, and he's going to do the bulk of this webinar and basically explain the challenges he had and how he actually did simplify them using ITSM in the public sector. And also my colleague Stephen Boardman, he's one of our product specialists around the service manager application. And Stephen's going to help us during the actual webinar with some demonstrations of some of the functionality that Adam's going to be speaking about later. So really, without further ado, this is all about what Adam's done, really more than what Hornbill have done. So I'd like to hand over to Adam and just start the webinar off to basically explain what he's done in his business area.
Thank you, Stuart. Good morning, everybody. So I'll start off by talking what we did. In January this year, Aylesbury Vale District Council implemented Hornbill Service Manager using the free 30-day migration. And over the next few slides, I'll explain how we did this and also how our staff are now using the product. Start with a bit of background for AVDC. Over the last few years, we've have been on a journey moving towards a infrastructure-free environment. Our first brief was to enable flexibility and smarter ways of working when the council fulfilled a long-standing ambition to move into a single site on the outskirts of Aylesbury Town. We initially did this by removing the traditional Windows-based PCs, desktops and laptops and introduced Citrix, which enabled staff to work at any desk, increasing flexibility, working remotely, that type of thing. The next phase was to move our servers to Amazon Web Services, email to Office 365, and most recently move our MFD printers and telephone systems are now fully hosted and supported. Any new applications we bring in, of course, are now software as a service. We're currently looking at the introduction of enterprise content management, which will enable us to break down silos of our departments and work differently within the council, looking to collaborate more easily. If I take a step back slightly and go back to the late 90s, when I very first started working in IT on the service desk, this was my first ever ITSM tool. A paper-based system and a pager. I did think I was pretty flash walking around with the pager. Technically, it wasn't just a paper-based system. It was one of these horrible things, a Unix system. So apologies to any Unix lovers. It was around 2008. We moved on throughout the years, and then in 2008 we implemented a great product called Supportworks.
So yeah, that looks familiar to me, Adam, funnily enough, and if there are any customers on the webinar, which I'm sure there are, I was just going to say that does look familiar, but Adam, were there any specific reasons as to why you wanted to move away from Supportworks? I mean, it does what it does, it's a good tool at what it does, but I just wondered what sort of aspects you considered in moving away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, to cover off, it was a fantastic product. It was really mature with its functionality. The team loved it. We loved using it. It just came to a point where it was becoming tricky to manage the on-premise hardware, manage the upgrades, introducing the new functionality easily, having downtime when we wanted to do upgrades and things like that. And we had a really we had a long-standing desire to simplify things and modernise our software and our approach. So the time was to move on, and of course it fit in perfect with our strategy,
of course, yeah,
of software as a service. So everything was ready to go and move on.
Okay, excellent, thanks.
So with that, we were ready to move on. So I began at the early stages of setting up a project to look at replacing Supportworks. First of all, I think it's clear to point out we are a local council, so therefore there is governance. So of course we did our due diligence and looked what's on the market, what options are available, making sure that we got the best possible value. I was impressed with all aspects of Hornbill Service Manager, really, in particular the collaborative approach and their long-term vision and commitment to innovation. So I created my brief to replace Supportworks with that and submitted it to the board.
Just on that point, Adam, sorry to interrupt, but for the guys in the audience here, that might be quite useful if anybody's thinking that, having to create a brief of a similar, scenario that you might want to change things. What particular factors were considered in that, Adam? What sort of things did you have to put in there?
Yeah, it's really interesting as you start creating the brief and what comes out, and it's actually quite easy to demonstrate the savings through the SaaS model. As you can see there, financial benefits and efficiency gains. So, the obvious high-level things are, removing costs of my AWS server hostings, operating system licenses, antivirus licenses. The more you actually dig into it whilst you're creating the brief, the savings just keep coming up. So actually the business model does stack up, and it was easy to put forward.
Okay, thanks.
In terms of my brief and submitting this to my board for approval, there was some scepticism at the early days about could this really be implemented and completed in 30 days. And it was pointed out to me that previous similar implementations like this have cost vast sums of money and taken up large amounts of resources from the department. So we were going through a busy time, as we always are, with rapid change at the council. So again, there was reluctance to start this, but it was down to the commitment from Hornbill. It was clearly committed to do it in 30 days, and the costings that I got sign off and was able to start this process, which is fantastic. I think one thing I would definitely point out is, it's 30 days, it's quick, so you have to be agile. It is a migration approach. You have to be flexible. I think if you go in too rigid, you can come across problems. So being flexible and agile was really important. This was also a fantastic time to take a quick break and tidy up what we got, cleanse our data, think about what we were going to import across, and not just take what we've got already. So we started looking at our knowledge-based documentation, cleaning up our asset store, bits and pieces like that we can get organised with. This was quite important to me as well, that I also took a baseline of current performance. So how is our system at the moment performing? And this came down to things like, how long does it take to log a request, something that's really important to us. We do that every day, all day long. Yeah. So I actually timed it. And then how many clicks does it take to log a request, so that when we go forward, we have that information. If we ever need to come back, we can check that. Talking about the partnership, this was absolutely key to making sure that this did happen in 30 days, and it very much did feel like a partnership with Aylesbury Vale Council and Hornbill. So that was quite an enjoyable part of the process. And as I always said to my team and the guys back at AVDC, the now is good, and what we've got now is absolutely great, but this is a long-term investment.
Good, excellent. That's great, Adam. Thanks for explaining that. We've had various questions on here. I'm just going to mention somebody's asked if you'd be willing to share your business case with them. So I'll just thanks for the interest. That's good. So I'm sure Adam can address that later. But thanks for explaining that and taking us through the summary of how the kind of project came about and how it got kicked off. I think what might be useful if you could maybe share with the audience maybe just some of the kind of personas that work on your service desk and the different benefits that they've got with the different roles that they have, because everybody's slightly different in the way they work, which funnily enough, is the first point on there. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Absolutely, it's a great point. So this is really interesting to me. So just to take a step back from the technology point of view and start looking at people and how they deal with the 30-day migration and bringing in the new software, and then also how they use the product in the early days. And you're absolutely right. And we know this. Everybody's different. Everybody works in different ways. It's important to factor that in. I think as well in the early days, and we mentioned this with Supportworks, it was a great product. It was very mature. It did everything you'd expect it to. The guys loved it. They had no complaints about it. I always think of it, it's like when you move house, there's a bit of, you love your old house, you're cozy, you don't necessarily want to move on. And I think there was an element of that with the team and moving on. So I factored that in. Also, we've got such an array of experience and unexperienced. So, there's some people who've been working in IT for 2 decades and are very familiar to ITSM tools and moving on and upgrading. And then others are massively inexperienced. They've been with us for, I think at the time, a couple of weeks and hadn't even worked in an office environment, let alone in IT. So you have to work with different people. The next point's interesting. I'm sure most of you have heard of Belbin and people's characteristics. We do it slightly differently at ABDC, and we look at examples of animals. So here we have, an elephant, for an example. They love detail and structure. So in Hornbill world, they'll get a real kick out of the business process engine and automation and workflows, whereas a monkey thrives on visuals and finding out things as they go. This is important because if you understand this and understand people's characteristics, you can use that to your advantage. And then again, remember the change curve. So people go through the change curve quickly. Some people might not want to move. Others are absolutely keen, ready to go. So I always think of that whenever bringing in anything new. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think I mentioned this a few times, it is a fast pace of change. The 30 days really is quick. There's no time to stand back and do this slowly. And actually, I'm a believer in that helps. So keep the momentum going, work quickly. I mean, I remember we had we looked at the opportunity to, I think halfway through the process, should we keep running our old system side by side for a while? And for me, this was not the right way to go. So it was, no, we keep going, we move fast, and we go live on the day we said we did. And we shut down Supportworks, and we never brought it back online once, which was fantastic. This point about the no training is absolutely true, that you do not need to spend time training your staff in all parts of it. It's completely intuitive. And if I go back to the example of unexperienced staff, so I had an IT apprentice turn up, his training was sat next to me for a bit. I explained a bit about incidents and service requests and the difference there, showed a tiny bit of the product and said, off you go. And, within, immediately they're just using it, working it out, following colleagues, updating timelines correctly, just using the product as it should be used, which was actually really exciting to see because, I knew it was intuitive, but when you actually witness it, it was fantastic. And again, another really important bit, this is cutting edge stuff, so that means it's going to be different. And I think you keep getting that message across that, this is not a similar type upgrade. It is a migration, and the software works very differently. So continuing the theme, looking at how people use it, if I move into how we use it on the service desk and sort of the functionality that the guys on the service desk use all day long and what they really feel benefit from. And this is a great one. This is the Headsup display that comes within a request. And as you can see, this is an example of our starter process. And where this is fantastic is, the analyst can go in and see at any point what stage that request is at. Other analysts can see what stage it's at really clearly. And it also helps, it removes the need for documentation. So in the past, they might have to have a Word document in front of them explaining step by step, procedure document, how to set up a new starter. It removes that complexity. Now they just use the heads-up display. The tasks come in and keep them on track. It also gives you an element of audit and history there, which is brilliant. So this is really powerful stuff. Targeted communications. I absolutely love this. You can see there I've used the @ symbol to send a particular update, and what that does is, so if you want to send a message to one analyst or two analysts, you can actually target it, put your update in the timeline, and then they then get the notification, as you can see on the pop-up. This is brilliant. I mean, how many times have we all logged a ticket or a request and then gone into, opened up Outlook, took a screenshot of that request and emailed it to the individual and said, hey, heads up, look, you've got this call, can you please do it? It removes all that unnecessary work now, it just speeds up the communication, and the right people get the information. And here we have an example of where you can like information and updates in calls, and the ability to follow analysts and requests. And again, this comes down to targeted comms, where if a service desk analyst takes a particular call and they log it and they might move it on, but they might not be working on it anymore, but they need to know or have an active interest in that particular request, they can follow that request, which means any update that goes into it they see. So it means that we're more efficient with our communication, so they get the instant updates. So if the customer does call back, they can say, okay, yeah, I know where that request is, this is the latest. So that's been a big plus. This is possibly one of my favorites. It's so simple and so basic, but in terms of efficiency, it's absolutely fantastic. Being able to simply paste a screenshot, an image or a video directly into the timeline. As you can imagine, on a service desk, we're doing this all day, every day, and there's an example of a screenshot that's been pasted in, and then another analyst has come in and commented below. So that is absolutely brilliant. And then this is a lovely touch. This is where you can award analyst achievements within Hornbill. And again, this is something that's quite popular. So the guys can receive achievements for good work they've done. It might be a milestone in terms of resolving requests. So they might they've resolved 1,000 requests and they get an achievement, or a positive piece of customer feedback might come in. And what's nice here is that's stored against their profile, and they can sort of see a history of their achievements, and other colleagues can comment on them. Okay, this is progressive capture. This is how we now log new requests and calls into Hornbill. So gone are the days of using complicated forms to fill in. Now the analysts use the concept of progressive capture, which simply guides them through ensuring the correct information is captured, whilst also providing relevant information regarding the customer. I think the point to raise is this is quick and it's easy to use, and again, it ensures that we get the right information. I'd say also it's almost fun to use. It's so quick and easy, it's almost fun how to log a call. And here we have the user interface. So again, it's crucial for the service desk that they have a clean, crisp, modern looking interface that they use all day, every day, and allows them to easily manage their own calls as well as finding other analyst calls. It's easy to navigate around and find the information. You've got the concept of views, and you can see at the top there the buttons to quickly go into incidents, requests, known errors or changes. It's fantastic. I particularly like the elements. It shows you when a request has an update. This was something I wanted for years. So you can see it, the request will highlight in yellow. That means there's been a recent update in that request that you haven't seen, so you know to go in there. And it also gives you can easily see when it was last updated. So the management, the high level management of your request is fantastic.
That's great, thanks Adam. I've got a question here that's come in before we move on. It's probably one you can answer quite easily. Basically, somebody's just asked how many users of Service Manager you have and how many analysts you have, and also are they all in one site or are they distributed?
Yeah, so we are in one site, so we've got 15 key analysts that are in there using Service Manager.
Okay.
We are, as I mentioned at the start, we are now as a council on one site.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent, that's fine. Thanks for answering that.
Pleasure.
There's some other questions that have come out through the session, but they'll come out in the wash, as it were. What I'd like to do now is thank Adam for giving us that overview of how people use it and some of the key benefits that he's got. But I thought it's a good point now to break it up a little bit, and I'm going to move over to Stephen now, who's been sitting patiently to actually demonstrate in the product, if you like, some of the things that Adam was actually mentioning, so everybody out there can get a feel for what it might look like in a live environment. So Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Stuart. So yeah, really, I just want to spend a few minutes just picking up on some of the points that Adam's made and giving you some sort of visualization of that. So one of the things that Adam was talking about was the concept of following tickets, following people. And what we're really talking about here is actually about collaborative ITSM. It's about pushing information to you that you're interested in and doing that on your own individual news feed. So it's about pushing information to you about changes that are ongoing or problems that have been identified, or as Adam touched on, updates to tickets that you're following. So if we scroll down the timeline a little bit, we'll see here that there's an update to this particular incident. And the reason that I'm seeing those updates, as Adam mentioned, is the fact that I've simply chosen to follow or unfollow that ticket on that particular occasion. And Workspaces can be used for various other things rather than notifications about sharing tacit knowledge and what have you, but the focus today was really just about those collaborative aspects. Coming on and looking at some of those areas that Adam mentioned that the team really enjoy using, one of those is the request list. And some of those key points that Adam mentioned there, this request list is context sensitive. If the team members only have the rights to work with incidents, that's the only icon they'll see. If they don't work with change, it's just not visible. They have the ability to look at this request, as Adam said, by looking at things that have been updated, looking at requests that are sat with them directly, ones they're following, tickets that are sat with any team that they happen to be a member of. And these are all great sort of default views that we provide. And we complement those with, if we look on the top left-hand corner here, quick filters to filter that list again by things that are important to you. So all the VPN issues, or within my team, I'm interested in seeing what Brian's currently working on. So in the context of those filters, I can then look at all of Brian's work. But again, giving some control back to your analysts and letting them manage their own environment. So as well as those default views, each of Adam's team and Adam himself can come in and start creating his own personal views. And a typical one, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with, is looking at all those high priority incidents that you've currently got in the desk. So I might create that personal view for myself, and creating that view is really, really simplistic. So as an analyst here, I don't need to concern myself or worry about the back end, the database, the table structure, understanding how to build up complex filters. All I'm interested in is using a simple clause builder that will allow me to say, okay, I want to look at high priority incidents, and perhaps I want to look at all of those that were raised against a particular service that I'm interested in, or sit with a particular owner. But in terms of me building those up, they're nice and easy and intuitive. And also as an analyst here, I can also control my world in terms of, do I want to work with a request list, or do I want a personal dashboard? Well, if I want a personal dashboard, I want to create my own content. And I can do that by defining these filters and then creating charts that I want to use on my dashboard. And in this particular example, I'm looking at high priority incidents as the condition, if you like, or the report. But then I'm also saying I want to create or split that data down by which of my teams are looking after those high priority incidents, or which members of those teams are responsible for them. But again, if I wanted to create a new one, I could come in here and say, okay, well, I want a donut chart. I want to have a look at all of that information, but I actually want to see well, who are the customers that these high priority incidents have been raised for, who are actually looking at them. So we can see Anna's got 5. Now, once I've got all that information, it's nice and intuitive for me to use. When I go back to the request list, I can simply choose to toggle between my request list and my personal dashboard, showing the charts that are important to me, moving them around as I want to, because it's my view, but also then having the ability to drill immediately down into that data to look at the 2 that are sat with the second line team. And if I want to, export that list out to CSV and use some of the other great features that are on here. And as Adam mentioned, controlling, showing the last update or other attributes that are important to you. So I think that's a really, really good feature here. The 2 other aspects that Adam really focused on for the service desk guys was that logging experience, and also then visibility on a ticket. So let's very briefly have a look at that. So in traditional systems, what I might do if I'm sat at my desk and the phone rings and I pick the phone up and I'm speaking to John, is I might have to choose which logging form I want to go into. So I might go into the incident logging form or the service request logging form, start talking to John, and then suddenly realise I'm in the wrong form. So do I then cancel that call and ask John to repeat everything he said? Or actually, if we gave you the facility where you could actually just ask those questions first in a progressive manner, one question at a time, no big forms, and then once you've got the relevant information, make the decision as to whether it's an incident or a service request. Much more intuitive way of working. So I'll just use myself as an example here. I'll just identify that it is the right person I'm speaking to. Have I called about an update for an existing ticket? If I haven't, what am I actually calling about? Well, I might have a VPN issue. Unable to work from home, so I want to work from home. And what I'm doing here is just answering the questions that have been directed to me, and they're all branch and the decision tree based. But as I'm going through, it's confirming and it's validating on the right-hand side. I could have said it's remote access or desktop support, but at this stage, I probably know enough to actually classify this as an incident or a problem or a change, so I can go ahead and do that. And based on the choice I make, all the questions that follow are relevant to an incident against this service or this particular issue. And I could go in and I could make this mandatory to log a category. I may have to make it mandatory to choose a priority. Do we want to associate any of Steve's assets or CIs with him when we're logging this ticket? It seems relevant that it's his laptop he's having an issue with. Where's Steve located? Well, is he working out of our single office? Do we have multiple offices? Well, actually, he's got a VPN issue. He's probably sat at home, so site might not be relevant on here. But all it does, it very quickly and easily captures the data that's relevant for that type of issue that I'm logging. Then moving on, I've raised that ticket, and a couple of the features that Adam again alluded to here was once we've raised a ticket, and as an analyst I come in and look at this ticket, this heads-up display, this visual heads-up display at the top really tells me everything that I need to know about how to progress with this ticket and what's happened so far. So it is showing me the different stages that we defined in the process. It's letting me know that a confirmation email has been sent off, confirming that it's been routed to a particular team, again confirming that the priority was already set. But then what else it's good at doing is actually saying, well, the next thing that needs to happen is somebody in that team needs to take ownership. And on here, it's actually taken me in context onto the action bar as where the action needs to occur. So I could come in here as Graham, pick up that particular ticket, and we'll notice that the heads-up display then marks that checkpoint, moves on, and on this occasion actually creates an activity. Now again, it's not a full demo today, so I really don't want to go into all of the details, but again, just a couple of points that Adam mentioned. If I want to cut and paste and put in images in, it's as simple as this. This could be the error that the customer's reported. So I can go in and simply apply that cut and paste in here. And as Adam mentioned, it drops immediately into the timeline. It's inline, it's visible. I don't have to open up each entry to see what it relates to. And again, the customer, if I've made that customer facing, can see that on the self-service. Adam also mentioned about these the communication options that are there. And again, these are really elements that we've added to complement the traditional reassignment or the traditional creation of a formal task to bring people into the conversation. What we can do with Service Manager is twofold. First and foremost, what I might want to do is drop in a subject matter expert. So on here, I might drop Rosemary in as our change manager and add her as a member into this particular request. And what that might do for Rosemary is actually elevate her rights to actually allow her to look at this incident that's been raised against this team and against a particular service. And then if we come back up, we can say, well, it's great adding Rosemary into this, but what do we need Rosemary to do? So I will, as I mention Rosemary, can you look at this? And by doing that, Rosemary then, as Adam showed here, is going to pick up a notification that she's been mentioned somewhere and she can drill down into that information. So again, hopefully demonstrating it's really intuitive and backing up sort of what Adam's representing for his team that are using the tool. Okay. At this point, I'll pass you back to Adam. I think he's going to talk a little bit more about some other users of the system. So let's go back to our current slide.
Excellent, thank you. So now taking a step into a different team and how they use Hornbill Service Manager at AVDC and looking at the infrastructure sort of third line team, what sort of things they get involved in, and typically they'll pick up more change requests and work on them more actively than frequent incidents. So coming back to the heads-up display, this has been a massive improvement in managing the changes and helping the team understand where they are and what position it's at. So I can remember previously, bizarrely, you'd have the comment of, well, what status is that change in? Has it been approved? Has it not been approved? And that removes all this. You can see now, looking at that heads-up display, exactly where it is, if it's been approved, if the risk plan's been completed, if the regression's completed, and where it is. And it really helps keep track. And then on the back of that, you have the activities that can be assigned and help the team work their way through, which is really fantastic. Again, on an infrastructure point of view, that they'll typically be working on problem requests and picking up some high-level issues. And what I found really useful is the way it's so easy to link requests. And this removes any subjectiveness where we might have logged a problem to a third-line analyst and they'll be trying to understand the impact of that problem, what's the urgency, how many incidents is this causing, and there might be some confusion and back and forth communication with the infrastructure and the service desk. Because it's so easy for everybody to link requests and it's clean and you can see, it removes that, so they can see instantly in a particular problem they might have, well, okay, I can now see 15 more incidents have been linked to this problem. I'm now getting a better picture of what the situation might be, and they can go into those incidents and look at timestamps, and it just, problem management is very important, and it helps work with that. The one thing that I've actually witnessed work well is the workspaces, and so this team will help projects. They'll help the project management implement projects, so they'll be massively involved, and what that means is they can set up workspaces so information can be shared easier throughout the whole team. And I can remember one particular example where a project had just gone live, and there was a tiny issue. The project manager came in and handed over a post-it note with the details and the number to call to fix it when these came in. So instead of maybe the old days send around an email or walk around talk to people, I quickly put that information into the project workspace, and so that was then shared across the team. So everybody's got that information, everybody knows what to do, and it's just a really fast, effective way of communicating. This is probably one of my favourite features, and this is the concept of boards. I absolutely love visual management. I think it works really well, and it's really efficient. So we set up a board to run our CAB and our changes. And basically what that means is we now sit there in our CAB and we fire up the change management board, and it helps us work through what changes need to be reviewed, what changes need to be looked at for approval, what ones do we want to move on. And this just started working. So within the first week of go live, we started using this, and this absolutely had impact straight away. Gone are the days of before we turn up to CAB with printed out pieces of paper with changes on that we want to look at. We'd manually scribble on them and then have to go back and after the meeting and update the calls. Now we just do it all dynamically with the screen in front of us. And one thing that I also saw that was really great to see was, because it's so intuitive and easy to use, the change manager doesn't necessarily always have to be in the CAB to run those meetings. If somebody needs to step up and pick up, they can. They know how to go in, find a board and run it, which was great to see. Another point on following calls in CAB, another example was I was walking into CAB and an analyst asked me, look, I know you're going into CAB, I've got this change that I'm really keen to get the information on. When you come out of CAB, can you give me an update? And so I said, well, if you follow that change, whilst we're in CAB updating that change, either approving it or not approving it, you will get that live information. And I just thought that was fantastic. So I'm a big fan of visual management and boards. We also use this for to manage problem management. We've got a problem management board, and I also use it to manage breached calls. It works really well.
Great, that's good, Adam. Thanks for explaining that other persona. So I think good chance again to go back to Stephen to show how that might look in action in the tool itself, some of these points. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Stuart. So yeah, again, let's just pick up on some of those key points that Adam was raising there, and I think one of the key ones there was around linking requests, and we'll come back to where we were with this incident that we just raised here. And we'd raised a VPN issue, and it's quite valid that I might go looking for other VPN issues that we're aware of in the system, and we might look for instance problems and known errors. Now, I can actually filter this back and say, well, actually, I'm only interested in this occasion from an incident point of view in any open problems that we've currently got ongoing at the moment. And we can see here that there is one, and I could drill into it and have a look at the details. And I can link my incident to that particular problem. Now, a couple of things that will happen is the relationship will be formed between the incident and the problem, but also if that problem's actually got a workaround which has been identified, as the incident owner, I can see a solution has been presented to me. The workaround for that particular problem is then visible. I can review that, and I can just choose whether to accept that solution and it fixes my customer's issue, or actually if it's not the solution, that's fine, I'll acknowledge that it hasn't helped me, and I can keep looking. I can also go looking for future problems and their workarounds. But if we drill down on that actual problem, and I think this is what Adam was sort of alluding to, is from the problem perspective, if I have a look at the link requests, I can start to get a feel, as he said, for how many customers are actually affected by this particular problem. We've got multiple incidents that are linked to that. Equally, if I start to identify a solution or a workaround, and I publish that workaround here, any of those incidents that are linked will automatically be pushed to that potential solution, and the analysts that are looking after those incidents can then obviously communicate that out if it's pertinent and relevant to resolving their particular issue. So I think that's really, really important. What's also useful though is the ability to say, well, actually, we had an incident, we linked it to a problem or a known error. Well, actually, if we want to sort of manage that back into our environment, we can create a link change off the back of this particular problem. We can cascade up the information from that particular problem. Again, following progressive capture that's specific to Adam or any of our customers and all the questions they want to ask. So this is an example of a custom form that you might want to put in with, what type of changes that you want to raise, who's affected. Well, actually, it might be multiple users. We'll put that on there. Risks looks, sort of low-ish on there. So we'll put some information in. We may want to categorize. It may or may not be particular mandatory or not. I won't add any more assets on here. But we then come into the change environment, which again Adam was sort of talking about. And again, without sort of drilling down too much on this, the heads-up display does help us. It does drive actually what are the stages of your change process that you're interested in. What are the key milestones that you want to achieve and make visible to the people that are working in change. So if we just take a couple of steps through this, again, I'll take ownership of this particular change, and that's confirmed here. One of those activities that Adam mentioned, again, completely definable outcomes that are relevant to that particular task at that particular stage in that particular process. So I'm going to mark it as valid to actually look at this particular change. I'm also going to do an impact assessment here, bearing in mind that if I wanted to, I could do parallel tasks. So I could have my security team, my comms team, my infrastructure team, all providing their own feedback on the impact of their particular area. I know in this example, if I go low, it's going to bypass the need for a backup plan, and we get through to this sort of cab stage that Adam was alluding to. And in my particular example here, I've actually got three members of that cab, but the boards which Adam was talking about will mean that if I drop from that change into this visual board, what I actually see are all those life cycle stages of our change process. And we can see here that change that we've just walked through here, 169, is automatically sat in that cab stage. There's no need for actual manual intervention to manually move it from validated to impact assessment to the approval stage. The business process can actually take care of that. And what that provides the change manager, or in fact anybody else, is a helicopter view of what's happening at any given time with all of our changes, with the ability to then drill into drill in and look at the changes that Rosemary is responsible for, or anybody else. But as Adam said, it doesn't just have to be change. You could use this for problem management, and you might look at how many problems do we have with our ERP systems, with our comms, with our security, having that type of visibility. But also from an incident perspective, which of my incidents are going to breach today or in the next couple of hours or very shortly or have actually breached. As a manager, that gives me a very visual way of actually understanding the challenges and my priorities from an incident management point of view. But just lastly, and coming back to that change that we had on the cab board, if I come in as a member of that cab and I actually make the decision and we progress this and we say, yeah, we'll accept this change and it will go through to be ready to be scheduled. Coming right back to where we started from, and Adam mentioned about these workspaces, if I was a member of this change management workspace, I was a stakeholder, I'm interested in what's happening, as soon as that change has actually been approved, we can push that information out to that change management workspace. And because I happen to be a member of that change management workspace, that information then gets pushed out to me on my newsfeed, which will sit alongside all the notifications and updates to my tickets I'm following, problems that have been identified. So I think this is a really useful sort of full circle, if you like, in terms of the communication. Okay. Again, I'll stop there and pass you back to Adam, because I think again we want to have a look at again other people's benefits of using Service Manager. Sorry.
Thank you. That's excellent. So coming back to the final persona of what's been great and how we use Service Manager, this is looking at from a more management point of view. So effectively the service desk manager. The top point there about flexible pricing has been really good. So this is important because you can quickly scale up or down. So as potentially, you might be in a busy period and you get 10 new analysts, it's not a problem. You can quickly, dynamically add that into your plan and get up and running. There's no time wasted. And this might be such an obvious point about anywhere, anytime, but actually it's always good to remember this, that you can access this system from home easy, and it's about being easy to access. So again, it might not be a popular comment, but I use it all the time, so I can go home and just quickly log on and actually it does make my working pattern, my working life easier. So typically, maybe before I'd think, okay, I need to stay in the office for an extra 45 minutes, checking this, doing that, updating this, oh, I've got to do that. Now I just think, I know it's going to work. It's the same experience when I get home. I'll just leave that. I'll get back, quickly log on, or it might be on the train, and you can update there. So that's been great to use. Continuous deployment is simply just great fun. So instead of these horrendous upgrades that take vast amounts of time, and I don't know if it's just me, but they typically go wrong and it's quite stressful. Now the rolling continuous updates, 2 a week, 1 a week, you just get to hit the button, you press update, and then you get all of that new functionality instantly. So it's actually quite exciting. So I'll see it come in, you'll get the text, what's in that update, the new features. So I'll quickly tell the team, okay, right now you've got that new functionality, it's live, and it never breaks, it just works. So that's really an enjoyable part of the software. The business process engine in the back end in the admin portal is really great to use. It's very visual, very workflow. Hardly any training to use that to set up your processes you need. So like the starter process I showed, or anything that you need to set up and guide analysts through. So one I've got that recently set up is, if you're logging a, say, high severity incident and it's absolutely critical you get the right information at the right time, I set up a business process to drive that and make sure that happens, and it's so easy to use. And an example I would use, I was sat at my desk working on the business process, and I was just quickly trying to work something through, and a colleague of mine was sat next to me who'd never seen it, and just quickly pointed out on the screen, well, you need to do that and drag that there and do that, and it was absolutely right, and I couldn't believe it. I thought that again just demonstrates how intuitive this stuff is. The dynamic reporting is lovely. The widgets, the scorecards, the dashboards, absolutely great. This has helped me massively. So I do, as a manager, weekly reports and monthly reports. Previously, I'd have to manually run my data. There'd be some manipulation. They'd have to work out what I need to put into Excel, and it took some time. Now I can just take a screenshot of my scorecards, and it's got the trending, it's got everything I need. So this massively saves time. In terms of collaboration, we keep talking about collaboration. What I've witnessed, it really does work. It absolutely speeds things up, cuts out a lot of messing about. It's really effective, so that's been enjoyable. Organisations and contacts within Hornbill, certainly in my world, is very, very important now. Being an infrastructure-free environment, we're incredibly reliant on our suppliers and their SLAs and their contracts, so it's vital I have that information available and I'm able to get it quickly. So if ever I need to log an incident, I can quickly go into the organisations within Hornbill, find the details I need. That might simply just be a contact, how to log into a portal, all the documentation's in there in terms of their SLA. So if somebody comes up to me and says, right, this call's logged with, so what's happening, what's their SLA, what's the escalation path, it's all there, all in one point. And I can also get that information on the app as well. So if we're in a DR situation or something like that and I can't necessarily get logged on, it's not a problem. I can get that information from the app on my mobile. The document storage has been really good actually, and for once I do feel like I'm a bit more in control with my policies and procedures and knowledge base articles. So it's been pretty easy to set up. So we've got knowledge base stores and project stores within the document storage. You can have your own documents, share them with teams, and there's an impressive collective feature which helps manage and share documents easier. But that's been great to again get some control back in terms of documentation. And one thing again, the mobile app's really good. Great to have that available, and I particularly like the checking in feature where analysts can check in and put updates in. Probably less useful for myself being on a single site, but we do have teams that have to go to remote sites and they can check in and say, okay, look, I've just arrived, here I am, here's an update on the call, and so it's really useful.
That's great, Adam. Thanks very much. That gives us a good feel for the kind of benefits you get out of it from a management perspective. The kind of flexibility and getting all your documents in one place and being able to figure out what the other guys are doing. So for the final time in this session, I'm going to ask Stephen to maybe show some of this in the tool as well, and we'll get a feel for it.
Thanks, Stuart. So yeah, again, very briefly, just picking on some of those points. Obviously, some of those are very difficult to demonstrate. They're much more benefits of the service, if you like, that's being delivered and how we deliver it. But just picking up on a couple of Adam's points there. The whole point about the collaborative approach, if you like, combining what we sort of class as tacit knowledge or unstructured knowledge with apps like our document manager tool here, which does allow or provide a facility for each of your analysts to create and upload their own documents. Once they've got those documents uploaded, sharing those documents with your colleagues, showing your documents to the colleagues so you can actually work on the content, keeping things like revision histories, having a timeline, a document, a person, a request. It's just a first-class social object in its own right, so we should be able to follow and collaborate on that. But then creating these documents and publishing them and moving them into libraries, and those libraries being more widely available to other collaborators on the platform, having review dates, attributing tags. And tagging is great because, one, it helps with looking, if I want to look from some policy documents or the problem management process document, I can go and find that very easily. But in terms of organising the documents that I have on here, one of the challenges we're actually looking to address here was, we hear time and time again about unstructured file shares on the networks, documents being held in email, it's very difficult to access and manage. So I think one of the points Adam was mentioning here was actually you can create self-organizing collections. So I could actually come in here and very simply say, I want a collection that's going to show me all documents that have the process design tag, for example, or a combination of tags. Therefore, any documents that currently exist with those tags go into my collection, and any documents that are added in the future with those tags will automatically be promoted. So it's self-organizing in that regard. But then just coming on to some of the more sort of admin side that, again, I think Adam sort of really enjoys using here. Hopefully that came across. If I log into the admin console, get my password on it. Yeah, okay. So there was a couple of aspects that Adam touched on here. One was around that sort of that workflow, that business process design. And I think it's really key to sort of touch on that was, we do ship with some example ones, but it's incredibly intuitive and easy for you to come in and build your own processes. And one of the real benefits of this, apart from it being drag and drop canvases and very easy and intuitive to move the nodes around, is we're really not prescriptive in terms of how you should work. We don't dictate that you have to use timers when you're working with requests. But if you do want to use them, do you want to use a fix and a response timer? When do they start? What constitutes them being achieved? Do you want confirmation emails to be sent, and at what point and to whom? Creating human tasks, automated tasks, routings, round robin assignments, taking out of the context of instant management and looking at something like the change process, what we've looked at here. We saw that heads up display, and that was just representing those 4 stages that we defined here. And each of these checkpoints here, whether they were authorizations at CAB, expiry if someone doesn't make a decision and where it goes, decision points, all just built nice and graphically here. And that is also true of the other aspect that we looked at, which was that progressive capture. So when we logged that incident and we created that change and those questions that we were being presented with, we just build all of that graphically. And on here, all the blue nodes just represent a default question, and these purple ones represent custom questions that you can come in and define yourself with, as I said, branching of decisions to reflect however you want to work. And the last point, and usually that sort of ends that way, looking at sort of your management reporting and your output you get from this. Adam's absolutely right. There's a trending engine that's provided on the platform that allows you to build your own measures. So that could be simple things like how many calls are we resolving a day, what's our average resolution time, what's the percentage fix. All of those measures can be set up. You can define targets for them and then see how you're performing against those targets over the sample interval that you're interested in. So that could be daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever that may be, as well as having a spark line that gives you the trend of how you're performing against the target. And the great thing there is this really acts as a data provider for you to use when you're building widgets, and widgets are just content to be put onto dashboards, and you can come in and build your own dashboards, share those dashboards with different roles and users, define them as you need them, and you can obviously just wallboard individual dashboards as you need them, display them in the office, or what you could actually do is daisy chain multiple dashboards together to create a slideshow which will just transition through and show you a lot more data very easily and simplistically, and having the data refreshing on each of those widgets based on whatever interval you want. So this is just a quick example of rolling through 3 or 4 different types of dashboard content that you can get out. Okay, so I know we're sort of coming up to the end of our time here today, so I'm just going to go back to Adam and possibly maybe ask him just to sort of summarise his whole experience so far.
Yeah, thank you. Very quickly from me now, just to, as you say, summarise. So key point there at the top, this really is a partnership approach with the migration. It generally did feel like that, and that continued once we had gone live. There was none of this, okay, you've done the migration, you've done your 30 days, you've had your demonstrations, you're on your own. It's not like that at all. It is a partnership approach. It's really important, again, to remember that this is a migration and not an upgrade, certainly from a Supportworks point of view. But even if you're coming at this from any ITSM tool, we mentioned it is, it's cutting edge new stuff, so it will feel different, and you do have to be flexible and agile with that. It will happen in 30 days. This was so refreshing to deliver a project on time. From my point of view, from the IT point of view and from the organisation point of view, it's very satisfying to say you're going to deliver a project and you do it on time, and Hornbill were committed to making sure that happens. So if you are committed your end and you keep the momentum going and you keep the pace up, you will do it within 30 days, which is brilliant. And final point, and I say this to my team all the time, this really is just the beginning. So we've done this because we're buying into the future of this product. So it's absolutely fantastic now. But now that we've done it, we can sit back and let Hornbill do all the hard work, which is very enjoyable, and we just get the benefits of that. So it isn't about the right now. It is about what's coming and where we'll be in the future. And there's no pain or work for myself to do that. So it's brilliant. So if you're looking at it and you're going to do it, I'd say it's very enjoyable, and enjoy the process.
Adam, that's great. Thanks very much, and thanks for explaining that. That was very, very well presented and very well explained. Thanks very much. Now you probably see a big red question mark on your screen. We have had a few questions from the audience, as they say. Funnily enough, the majority of them for Adam, which is nice, because that means it's more about what they've done. But there is a product-related one, which I'll pass to Steve in a minute. But I know you talked about 30 days, but somebody actually did come through and say, did you really do it in 30 days? And was it all achieved remotely by Hornbill?
Yeah, it's absolutely done in 30 days. Of course, there was some pre-work that we could do, so why wouldn't you do that? And that was around the cleansing of the data and the baselining. So things like, and this is possibly the most boring part of it, we did look at our asset information and make sure that was accurate and tidy that up. And other things, what kind of knowledge base articles have we got? So there was some pre-work that you can do that's nothing to do with the migration, but that's always positive. Why wouldn't we do that? And we possibly should be doing that anyway. So that was good. But then in terms of the 30 days, it did happen, and again, it was very enjoyable to see that. Just quickly on the remote side of the management of that, at the start I was possibly a bit old school, and I was skeptical. Can it really be done remotely? I was on the, surely you're going to send some Hornbill guys in for even 5 days or whatever. I couldn't believe it. Surely they've got to turn up on site, but they didn't. And I don't know if it's because technology's just moved on or what, but it didn't cause any problems at all. It was very efficient.
Great, thanks for that. Another one here, which I'm going to give to Steve actually. Somebody's asked a question, which is a very good question actually. Apparently they've said there's differences between Analyst and collaborative users. So that is a good question, and there are differences. So I'm just going to let Steve explain that very quickly without going into the technical whys and wherefores. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe it's important just to position actually what the service and the solution is. It's Hornbill's delivered as a platform, if you like, and the Service Manager aspect is actually an app that's deployed on the platform. So if you look at it in that terms, when you're thinking about your subscriptions to use the Hornbill Service Manager service, you would have your analysts subscribe to the Service Manager application. But if you had other users in the business that you wanted to involve purely from a collaborative point of view, so that might be wanting them to be assigned tasks, authorizations, be members of Workspaces, be able to contribute, to be able to be notified, then actually you can just take collaborator subscriptions on the platform level. But just to be absolutely clear, if we do that, then obviously they wouldn't have access to the Service Manager app, so they wouldn't be looking at the request list, they wouldn't be looking necessarily at the personal dashboards and such like. But to be involved at a collaborative level, there is a collaboration-only subscription available as well.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. Hopefully that clarifies the question that was asked earlier. We're kind of coming to the end of the process here and the end of the session, but I'll throw this one out that somebody's asked as well, and then again this one's for Adam, so put you on the spot a little bit, but what is your favourite feature in Service Manager? Now I'm sure you've talked about a few of your favourite ones, but put you on the spot a bit there. Good question, by the way, whoever sent that in, thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think I did touch on it, and for me it's the boards, it's the concept of the boards and how they work and how they improve processes, and they make us more efficient. I mean, I have to say I'm a bit of a sucker for visual management. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I generally believe in it. So for me, it's the boards. I also like, we haven't mentioned him yet, but Harry Hornbill. So he's good fun. So what's interesting and clever about him is he will pop up within your main user interface and give you information about a particular update or some new functionality. But what's really clever is it's clever enough to work out, well, I already know that you're using my documents and collection, so I'm not going to bother you and pop up and tell you about that when I know you're using it. If you haven't used it, it pops up and says, hey, check out this new functionality. So it's very clever.
Thank you.
Okay, and I've got time for one more question, I think, which again I'm going to give to Steve, but actually I just got another one that just came in, so I'm going to deal with that one first. Somebody's just asked, is there a self-service portal for end users to raise or update incidents and service requests? And a quick answer, yes, there is. So they can raise their incidents, they can raise their own service requests based on the service requests and processes that you as a business create. The final question I'm going to ask that somebody asked was, what about integrations? How do we deal with integrations? Sure. They specifically mentioned BOMGAR. Now, BOMGAR is a remote control tool, but we have experience with BOMGAR. So perhaps, Steve, could you answer that? And that really is going to be the last question and answer. So sure. Thank you.
Actually, yeah. So really, just to add to what Stuart was saying about self-service, yeah, there's self-service available. It's actually available out of the box in any language that you might want to use. It supports single sign-on. It's brandable and customizable all through the admin tool, and we've got plenty of examples of what our customers have done with this if anyone's interested in taking a look at what's achievable. But on the integration question, yeah, it is a great question. Sometimes people are a little bit apprehensive about what can I do with a cloud-based solution when all of my systems I have are on-premise, and how do we sort of tackle that? The thing I'd probably say to reassure you is we can achieve the integrations. It perhaps is just in a different way to what you're used to when you have on-premise deployment. So whether those integration points are, hooking up with your AD to get users in, bringing information in from your network discovery tools, whether it's remote control tools that you want to integrate with. So we have various different techniques. I won't go into all of those today, but from the remote control point of view, if it's just light touch integration we're interested in, then we have the concept of these custom buttons that you can add to your asset forms or your request forms. If we're looking for tighter integration with specific remote control tools, then we are building different integrations with those. I know the question related specifically to BOMGAR on here, yeah, and that is one that we are looking to build into 2016 for you. So, yeah.
That's great. Thanks for confirming that, Steve. That's great. And thanks again, Adam. That's all the time we've got now based around the question. I'm going to hand back to Tatiana to wrap up, but thanks again for submitting some really good questions, and hopefully we've answered them all for you. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you very much, Stu, Steve and Adam, for taking us through that. I hope everyone found it interesting. If you'd like to get more information about Service Manager, please visit our website via URL displayed on your screen. Similarly, you can learn more about collaborative ITSM on our resource center at solutions.hornbill.com/resources. For further questions, please contact us via website or drop us an email on hello@hornbill.com. Finally, thank you everyone for their time today, and from all of us here, we'd like to wish you a very good day. Thank you.